This is an Audio Wool original.
This episode of Frightday is brought to you by Gates of Hell Chipotle Hot Sauce by Frightday. Bold chipotle flavor blended with habanero peppers for just the right burn. Kissed with garlic and passion fruit. Zero human blood, like none at all. Visit shop.frightday.com before the first batch disappears. We're also brought to you by Magic Mind, the world's first productivity drink.
Hey guys, thanks for listening. If you'd like to support us, go to patreon.com/Frightday.
It is Frightday. I'm your host, Byron. Tragedy can trigger more complicated trauma than loss alone, and the pathway to healing is often congested with ghosts, echoing ignorance disguised as advice. But what happens when a mourner pushes back against patriarchal guilting? We'll talk about that tonight as we review Alex Garland's Men. I'm joined tonight by Kelly.
Hello.
And Sam can't make it, and I'm not getting into it. There's no good thing I can say tonight.
Sam's giving birth?
That's fun. Welcome back. Pitch black. It's porch season.
It is. In fact, it's past porch season even.
I recorded most of the Barjona stuff outside during last July, I think, right?
God, was it July?
Yeah, it's been a year anniversary. Congratulations. You survived a year in post-Jonah world.
Oof. Okay. Wow.
Visibly ill.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have brought it up. I'm
No,
sorry.
I'm good. I'm good.
Are you good? Because
I'm
you
good.
caught COVID-19.
I did.
You got the bug.
I also took half a course of Paxlovid.
Okay.
But not a full one.
Let's back up a little
So
bit.
I'm probably going to die.
I thought I gave it to you. I was really scared for a minute because it did happen while you were still in an undisclosed location awaiting trial.
awaiting trial, but I'm not anymore.
You texted
was
me
acquitted.
out of the blue you texted me, I got COVID or something like that. 2 days after
We all got COVID.
That's what you said. I thought you were nudging me to be like, do you have COVID? Because you gave me COVID.
no.
Because you know where I was the day before. I was at a right-wing extremist quote-unquote comedy show.
Yeah, that was...
So I figured, since everyone I was sitting around was commenting about the tyrannical forced vaccination of their friends and family.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Well, I was sitting at the same table with a nurse. That was really cool. She was
so grim.
vaccine exempt.
So grim.
So when you send me a text saying we all got COVID without saying anything else, I was like, yeah, I fucking just gave Callie's entire family COVID-19. Thanks for letting me stay at your lovely vacation house. This was really cool. But it wasn't me.
It wasn't you at all. And I'm sorry that you thought that I was trying to imply that. No, it was not. But now we're okay.
Whole family did okay?
Mostly. Well, now it's funny because we thought we had avoided my parents getting it. We didn't.
You brought it home.
They have it now.
Both of them?
Right now. They both have it right now.
I didn't
Took
know.
that long to get it.
Wow. Are you sure that you gave it to him?
Well, I can't imagine anything else. I suppose I don't know for
Who
sure.
knows?
But
It's
I
not like...
really think it was us.
you guys did go to a wedding as a family, right?
We did.
So don't beat yourself up. Who
I
knows?
swear I got stabbed by the...
You got stung in the face by a bee's butt.
Face.
You're doing well. Anything to report about COVID-19?
It definitely melts your brain.
It does, and it did push our production schedule back just a little.
Significantly.
Not too bad.
Only partially because I wasn't feeling well, because the really feeling like shit period ended much more quickly
It's psychological.
than the brain not functioning period, which is still not
Yeah.
entirely over, but I feel like I can at least mostly kind of sort of function.
Fun fever nights or not?
No, only one fever night, and I hate sweating at night. It's like my least favorite thing.
Did you think you were a human puzzle piece?
Explain?
I think I did on an episode of our show.
I don't remember.
I had a night where I kept shifting my body into contorted shapes because in my head I thought that that's what I needed to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, to try and get to spots on the bed that were not wet with sweat,
Well,
I can understand that.
That was part of it.
Trying to find the cool spots
Nope.
on the bed.
No. I was having a... What you got going on over there? God, I hate it out here. I hate it so
love
much. It's a fucking nightmare. I love it. Well, I'm happy you're doing better because we've got some shit to do. Like 6 new projects in the works.
We have a lot.
Big, fun, exciting things. I know.
We do.
Get it together, please.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
I'm here.
Running a little late, so I think we should jump right in.
Oh, you think we should?
Well, yeah, because these DVD copies of A Man Apart aren't going to put themselves
I
away.
really thought you were going to do the beach this time.
Oh, that would have been fun. It's time for staff picks.
They say so much, but they never tell you if it's any good.
Werewolf movie with E.T.'s mom in it?
The Howling, horror, straight ahead.
I'll kick it off. I will. We have never covered this film, but we did do its sequel. Am I writing a riddle or something? I'm talking about Lucky McKee's The Woman.
This is our project, and it's a secret.
What are we gonna do with her?
We're gonna help her. We're gonna train her, civilize her, free her from herself, from her baser instincts. Everyone, keep your distance.
Are you sure you're not overextending?
Have you ever known me to let things get out of hand?
Are you serious right now?
A disturbing tale of torture and dirty little secrets that can haunt any seemingly harmless neighborhood. The story follows a successful country lawyer who captures and attempts to civilize the last remaining member of a violent clan that has roamed the Northeast in the wild for decades, thereby putting the lives of his family in extreme jeopardy. Who wrote this synopsis? That's not really
Whoa.
what happened in Lucky McKee's...
Well, let's hear what actually happened, Byron.
I talked to Lucky, not about this, but about Tales of Halloween in episode 46 of this podcast, where we also talked about the Cecil Hotel, one of my favorite topics. But Lucky, I'm trying to think if we've covered any other...
What else has he done?
Well, first film, All Cheerleaders Die. He also did May, which is
Oh.
a cult classic film. I haven't seen it ever, actually. Pretty popular.
I'm trying to remember. I'm almost positive I've seen that one.
I have a feeling you did. He did a remake of his first film, All Cheerleaders Die, in 2013. The last movie was Kindred Spirits. We had a screening copy. We didn't watch it.
Biscuits.
Yeah, he's filming something now, though, called Old Man with Stephen Lang.
Oh.
One of the best old men in the horror game. But
Interesting.
It
When
is
is that?
interesting.
When is that out?
I don't know, but it's produced by a great guy named Aaron B. Kuntz. Whoa, XYZ's involved, too. That could be good. I like Lucky. We had a nice little chat, but this film, The Woman, Pollyanna McIntosh, incredible performance. Lauren Ashley Carter is in this. One of
You
her...
do love.
I miss
Yeah.
her. Miss her. She's
mean,
off in London doing mom stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
good for her.
100%. I just miss her on screen. Yeah. But in this movie, I mean, a lawyer kidnaps a feral woman and keeps her locked up in a shed in his backyard, and he tries to break her. He also does some pretty heinous assaults on her as well.
Wow.
You don't remember this film? Mm-mm. Oh, man, it is a gritty little thing. I need to revisit this before I have any firm stances, but I mean, even just the plot of having a feral naked woman chained in a
Yeah.
room being assaulted, whether or not she gets her revenge, it definitely feels more like a...
Exploitation.
Yeah. So I don't
like
know.
a Lucifer Valentine.
Not so far, but I do like... I recall liking this. Maybe I'll have to check it out and see if I really do like it. It came out via the Bloody Disgusting imprint back in the day. I wonder what those guys are up to.
I do
They
wonder.
have to have sold that to like a media
Oh,
company, right?
yeah.
Like,
I mean, there's way too much. Well, I don't know. Maybe they have bots doing it now.
it's all AI writing articles. Have you seen the programs that can write articles? It's pretty disturbing.
Why don't we have one?
Well, we should. They cost a lot of money, but it might be
Why
good
don't
for
we
us.
write one?
I'm not a computer scientist.
No.
I'm not. But
No.
oh my god.
Uh-oh.
Hey, I'm just reading the stuff that this guy Chris does to the feral
Oh,
woman.
don't read it out loud.
I'm not gonna.
Thank
But
you.
we did cover the sequel to this, Darling. Remember?
Yes, that I do remember.
Yeah. Pollyanna McIntosh is an incredible actress.
Agreed.
And she, I believe, directed that film. It was not my favorite, but it was nice to see her at the wheel of a film that she was heavily involved in. Kelly, what about you?
To try and find something that's truly similar to what we watched for this week, I just don't know that I could actually do that.
I know one film.
The Human Centipede.
Excuse me?
I mean, just for the last scene, there was something that felt very Human Centipede
Well,
about
that's
it.
fun. Tom Six, one of my favorite directors. You're talking about the Human Centipede first sequence, of course.
No, I'm not actually doing Human
Well,
Centipede.
2009
I was
film.
just saying that's the one movie that reminded me a little bit.
Dieter Laser, rest in peace, of course.
Nope.
Wow, I cannot
Nope.
believe you're making me talk about this film.
Nope, we're not
This
going
is
to. We're not
crazy.
going to. We're not going to talk about
Insane.
it. Nope. 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 Nope.
What
nope,
happened to
nope,
Tom
nope,
Six?
Nope.
I've been waiting to watch that weird movie where he made a movie about people who. It's like a fetish film, basically. I mean, it's pretty much a Lucifer Valentine.
Really?
Higher budget. Can't remember.
Really?
It has something to do with coming to climax based on the misery of others. Yeah.
So I have two things.
Oh, you've got a movie?
Well, I've actually got a book and a movie.
That's fine.
Because the movie I don't think you're going to love, but I'm throwing it out there because I haven't seen it, and I've been reading a lot about Alex Garland in the last few days. And his favorite movie of all time that I have heard him now mention on 3 separate interviews.
2001?
It's a movie called Come and See. It's a 1985 Soviet anti-war film. He literally lists it as his favorite movie of all time. 2001 is on the list. So is Parasite, Spirited Away, and I can't remember what rounded out the list. But this was one that I had never heard of, let alone seen. And I don't think it necessarily counts as specifically horror, but it seems very
it seems pretty intense.
horrific.
Yeah. Wow.
And I think relevant to us right now. I also think it's interesting because one of the reasons he might be pushing this so hard as his favorite movie, though he has talked about it for years as being his favorite movie, is the next movie he's making is a war movie.
Yeah, it's interesting. Have you ever heard of a film from 1984 called Threads from
No,
England?
Never.
It was produced in part by the BBC, and it kind of reminds me of this a little bit, even though Threads is like a mockumentary, a what if a nuclear bomb blew up in England.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, you don't want to say it's cool, of course, but
Right, but it's
really interesting, and it kind of visually reminds me a little bit of this Come and See film. But I'd have to see it to know for sure.
fascinating.
Kind of fun.
So that is the movie I'm going to recommend. And then there's this book that I think was made into a couple of different movies, but it sounds like neither of them were very good representations of
The
it.
Beach.
Oh, I assumed you would veto that, so I didn't
Yeah.
even try.
But we talked enough about that in Behind the Screams this week.
It's so
we
good.
went all the way through Alex Garland's career.
It's so good. The
Check
Beach is the best.
that out.
The Day of the Triffids, which was a post-apocalyptic novel, a British novel that came out in the 1950s. And this was apparently Alex Garland's biggest inspiration for 28 Days Later.
Oh, wow.
Which I
Okay.
thought was really fascinating because it looks much more lighthearted.
It was that in Night of the Living Dead, I think he referenced.
Yeah, and Resident Evil, he actually gave a lot of props to. Isn't that
I could see
interesting?
that. I could see that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the game.
The video game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because he must be a gamer,
He
right?
is. Oh, he's definitely
Is
a
he?
gamer. He's a
Interesting.
gamer and a comic book nerd. And
Because
like,
he did the Devil May Cry video game series. He wrote
So
for it.
I don't know comics well enough, but he said the single most influential piece of media in his whole career is the 2000 AD comic book series.
I don't know anything about it.
Which I don't know anything about either, but that's Judge Dredd was part of that.
That's
which
so
then
sad that he
turned into the movie
Dredd. And they didn't do very well.
Yeah, I don't think it did at all. Those are his things, and I'm just trying to get more inside the head of this very interesting man.
Well, cool.
So let's watch this Russian anti-war flick, perhaps read that fun British sci-fi novel. And
how do you think I'm doing, Kelly?
I think that
I mean, you've seen me in rough shape on occasion.
oh yeah, you're nowhere near bottom.
No, I used to just float around in an exhausted haze.
I did see you with a really weird plastic Barbie doll mask with like the blonde
I thought you
hair
were
on
talking
it.
about my small-sized shot, of course, because it's an occupational hazard when you work in the specialized fields that we do, of course. And Kelly, unlike you, I don't have a prescription to cool stimulants. Which is
a prescription.
Oh, okay. Well, now, Kelly, I don't need one.
You don't?
Because I'm starting my days with a little green shot
You don't say.
called Magic Mind.
I really wish it was Magic Mike.
Oh,
There's so many fun implications for that.
What, like a big old shot of Channing Tatum sweat? Come on.
Yeah.
Man. I don't need that in my life.
Could be.
Guys, this stuff rips. When you're a professional plate spinner like I am, it's a priority to wake up and dive in as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Cortisol levels. Did you hear that high cortisol levels might protect you from COVID?
Just read I don't know if it's not in here to my knowledge, but
No, but it's bad to have high cortisol
Oh,
levels.
good.
But if you jump in fast spinning plates, you'll probably get high cortisol levels.
well, great. I'm currently on day 7 of taking Magic Mind, which
yeah.
as a sober guy, it is fun to take
7?
a shot. I love shooting these things.
Shooting them first thing?
I feel wonderful.
You do.
More energy, sharper.
Your skin looks great.
Well, thank you. It's a beard mostly.
Yeah, well, you know.
You'll like this, Kelly. I no longer rely on energy drinks. That was a gross, dirty habit.
Good for you, Byron.
Well, yeah, who really knows what's in those? It's certainly not some of the things that MM features in this little beautiful bottle.
It is beautiful.
L-theanine. You know L-theanine.
Oh, yeah.
It's in the matcha. It helps
What
increase...
about any L-carnitine? You got any L-carn in there?
I don't think so. That's in my pre-workout. Has a little bit of it.
L-carn.
But this is in the form of matcha. It helps increase focus and attention. And it's just a little bit of caffeine, not too much. Helps with my exhaustion, and I pay more attention, and I don't crash.
You don't.
I don't crash the same way when I was drinking 2 or 3
Thank
months
God.
of energy
Those
drinks.
were rough.
Bacalpamoniere. I don't know how to say it, but I do know that it's a natural nootropic, Kelly, that helps with procrastination. They call it natural Adderall, which is really fun, right?
Shit. Well, Byron, I'm so glad that you're doing better.
Ashwagandha and rhodiola.
I love rodeos.
Excuse me? Just because I don't know how to pronounce it
I don't know how to
doesn't mean
pronounce
it's not
them either.
good. Those things work together to decrease stress and low-grade anxiety, and heaven knows.
Heaven does know.
I've got some of that. And
Only a little.
how do you say this? Lion's mane.
Aren't those like
Yeah, it's a mushroom.
mushrooms?
There's a different kind of mushroom here. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce, but it does boost my clarity and focus. This stuff's got all
You know,
kinds.
I think fungi are aliens.
I know
It's an
you do.
interesting thing that fungi do.
Do you think that's passing on the ancient knowledge of the cosmos?
Maybe.
Yeah, really liking my brain lately, Kelly. And if you're struggling with focus, energy, or
So glad.
creativity, I think folks at home should check this out. You can visit magicmind.co/Frightday and enter code Frightday20 to get 40% off your first subscription or 20% off your first one-time purchase. And that 40% off code, which that's a lot,
It is a lot.
it's only valid for the next 10 days. So get on that.
Sad.
Magicmind.co. Do more, stress less.
It's green.
It is green. It's green.
It's
It's a great green. And I'm a matcha guy. I like green tea.
I like green. My name's Kelly.
I also like stepping into the back room because we've got some stuff to do.
Are we doing illegal shots?
No, Kelly. These are very legal. Made in Venice, California. We are going to initiate and welcome some folks to the Frightday Society.
Oh.
And you can do that by going to cult.frightday.com, of course.
Well, you can join. You can't initiate people there. But you
pardon.
can join to
Thank
be
you.
initiated.
Great.
Yeah.
Eek.
Oh, great name.
Ek, maybe? EK, exclamation point, in brackets.
EK? Just one E?
Yeah, so it could be 2 initials, 1 E, so it's Ek.
I think it's pronounced cha.
Excuse me?
It's pronounced cha.
I don't know what that means.
I don't know. It just seems like it could be Gaelic and like pronounced with
sure.
sounds that have nothing to do with the letters.
Either way, thank you so much and welcome.
Oh, thank you.
We're gonna need you too.
Yeah, parents. Should we call this person parents instead of calling them ek?
Call them by their name.
I mean, but parents are part of their name. Parentheses.
Oh,
parents.
I didn't know that was.
Hey, parents.
Why don't you take a solo vacation?
Nope.
I think everyone
dangerous.
you need to take a second for yourself.
Take a second for yourself. Take a vacation from your problems
Could be a staycation even.
and
You
go
deserve
on a
it.
sailboat.
Appreciate you.
And-
Sailboat. Now you're getting oddly specific. That seems more dangerous,
It's
Kelly.
from What About Bob?
Oh, so you've never seen it.
Take a vacation from your problems,
All right.
Bob.
Regina P. gave a little bit more and found herself in the inner circle.
Amazing.
Regina, thank you so much. 2 months past Moon June. Write the letter. Write them a letter.
I've written it so many times.
in your head.
There's a lot of pressure.
You're going to have to do it.
I am going to have to do it.
I would love it.
In fact, I would like...
Regina to do it for you.
No, I would like Regina to draw a little piece of artwork that I can accompany some artistic representation of Moonju.
Now it's a zine, and I like that.
You can run with it any direction you want.
I think that's cool.
I'm excited.
Great. So Regina, get that in. Kelly at Frightday.com is her email address, and as soon as you get that in, the sooner that Kelly will get that out.
Isn't Regina the name of a place in Canada, but they say Regina instead?
It's a different place. It's time to close up.
I always thought that was interesting.
It is fun, isn't it?
Regina,
because
Uranus.
We're going to talk about...
Yeah.
As we review Alex Garland's Men.
We hope you're enjoying your visit here this evening. Now, on with the show.
Men is a 2022 folk horror film written and directed by Alex Garland. In the aftermath of a personal tragedy, Harper retreats alone to the beautiful English countryside, hoping to have found a place to heal. Please don't bump your mic, Kelly. I'm in the middle of a synopsis.
I'm sorry.
But someone or something from the surrounding woods appears to be stalking her. What begins as simmering dread becomes a fully formed nightmare, inhabited by her darkest memories and fears in visionary filmmaker Alex Garland's feverish, shape-shifting new horror film, Men. And we would usually talk a little bit about Alex Garland, but we did a lot about Alex Garland behind the screens.
Suffice to say, I like him a lot.
It seems that way, and I'm indifferent.
He's got a great accent, too.
I think I have never heard him talk. Maybe that would change the tide of the whole thing, huh?
He's just... So, Byron, I'm going to tell you one story that I didn't tell on our Behind the Screams, because I think it's representative of one of the reasons I like him. So, he is a bit of a control freak.
I can see that.
And that's why he started directing to begin with, because he really didn't like handing over his story.
Even to Danny Boyle.
Right, who he loved, but it's
competent director. It's different.
But one of the things that's interesting is, unlike control freak directors that we've heard about in the past who are, at least in legend, pretty evil to their actors and other people on set.
You're talking about like the 70s era.
I'm talking about like Kubrick,
yeah.
Right? Who is another really spectacular artist, but he was telling a story about this show, about this movie, and he was explaining that he doesn't like directing because of the pressure that comes with it, and he also finds himself embarrassed when he doesn't come up with the really good ideas, but he was very self-effacing about how the product that emerges from a really great cast and crew is something that he could never produce on his own.
It's collaborative.
Yeah, he's very quick to recognize the other talents involved, and he told this interesting story. He didn't say what scene it was about.
Therapy for a long time.
Maybe. But he told a story about a scene and didn't specify which scene it was, but it was a scene where he was directing Jessie Buckley, our heroine in this movie, to act super scared, and she was like, actually, I think in this situation, I would just be super annoyed. I think I'd be really frustrated and annoyed and pissed off.
One of the finale sequences?
I don't know. I got the sense it could have been the bar scene.
I didn't read the interview or heard the interview, but there was a really unique reaction to fear in one scene that I thought was kind of...
Oh, at the very end?
Well, at the couch scene, where her fear kind of turns inward.
Could be that.
But the bar makes sense too.
Instead of being fearful, she was like, I think that I would just be annoyed and pissed off. She's like, I don't think I'd be afraid. And he was like, she was totally right. And if I had pushed her to film it the other way, it wouldn't have been nearly as good. And the attitude of, he is clearly brilliant and he comes up with things. I mean, 3 movies, even if you didn't love this, the only 3 movies he's ever directed are all 3 revolutionary, interesting movies. And
what do you think's the least revolutionary of the 3? Ex Machina, we're talking about Annihilation, and then this film, Men.
Oh, tough.
They're all very different. The
the
least revolutionary movie would probably be this one, right? Like, I think you keep saying it's more complicated. I think it's probably the more straightforward of his 3 films.
Maybe.
But I could be wrong.
He seems like a really great artist who isn't an asshole.
Sure.
Which I really appreciate. Because I think it's very often that people are really good at something, but not good at being humans. And he seems like he's pretty good at being a human, too, maybe.
And sometimes when you're leading a film, I mean, we talked about it with the zombie film from Taiwan, The Sadness.
Oh, yeah.
And you hear it all the time with even, like, more recent Fred Savage stuff.
Yeah, I haven't
with
read
the Wonder
all of
Years.
that.
I haven't really dug
He was
too much
like
into
10,
it.
wasn't he?
He was directing the remake of the Wonder Years, and people called him out. He was just not a fun, nice director,
What a dickhead.
and I think things are probably worse.
That's really too bad.
I could be wrong. I haven't done much digging into it. But I do know that it is tempting for people who have a vision to be too precious with it and not be open to being wrong. That's really great to hear that Alex was like that in that moment. Because when you're doing a movie called Men, about men, and you're a man critiquing men, I don't necessarily think you are the most important voice.
And he seems to have acknowledged that.
Yeah, January 6th of 2021, it was the big announcement that he'd be directing for A24. This is his second film. I think he did Ex Machina for A24.
He actually did it for
Focus originally, right?
And then they dumped it.
Which is so wild.
Boy, did they miss the boat.
They kind of missed the boat, but then A24, they usually hang on to it. But he, I think, was maybe aiming for the moon and fell a little short with Paramount. Still great.
Still great.
Wasn't Paramount didn't even really push it too terribly hard? Annihilation?
I don't think so.
It's
Yeah.
theatrical. We talked about it in
It was
behind
like
the
a
screens.
super short theatrical release.
It didn't make its
barely
budget back, yeah.
But man, it's a good movie.
It's a fun one. But announced Jesse Buckley and Rory Kinnear. I don't really know too much about Rory Kinnear. I think that this movie, it's a brave performance.
It is.
Like when
he
you're
was so good.
But when you have to be four awful people.
Well, and he was even more than that. It's just the other ones were quicker.
That's true.
Glimpses. I mean, there was the bartender, there was
of
the
course.
creep at the bar, there was.
He was everyone, but they were all bad, which is really
They
an
were
interesting.
all bad because all men are bad.
Hey, I'm right here, okay?
Yeah.
Photography on it started March 19th of 2021, and it was scheduled to conclude May 19th, April, May, 2 months. Wow. Shot in the UK. You don't see people doing 2 months worth of shooting, but I do remember hearing something like that last sequence took 15 days. I don't know if I read something wrong, but
it looked
pretty good.
Yep.
Went a little late, wrapped on May 22nd, set upon the world in May 20th of 2022, a year later. Oh, it played Cannes as well.
Oh. I wonder what the reaction was at Cannes.
I feel like people either do 30-minute standing ovations or they leave the theater.
Yeah.
That's like the only two reactions I hear out
there.
of Cannes.
Yeah.
Do we want to go all the way back to the top? We could just discuss Harper. We could discuss the characters a little bit. We don't need to really go point by point, I guess. I bet we'll get distracted anyway.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, essentially, this woman whose husband has just died is trying to recover from that trauma. And so she's at this beautiful countryside manor.
In Coston.
It's funny because I have not spent time in the UK, but this is exactly what I, as a, American, would imagine a really countryside home and town in the UK to look like. It met all of my stereotypical expectations of a place. So you've got like the stone walls and the dirt roads.
Sure, just like in the
thick
2006 movie The Holiday.
Yes, actually, very much. Was it filmed in the same place? Because it looked very similar to me.
The Kate Winslet, Cameron Diaz, Jude Law, Jack Black
100%.
film. That's a whole different movie, though.
Yes, this is like if that
went really wrong.
Went terribly wrong. And they weren't just like in a bad breakup. They were recovering from a traumatic death.
Yeah, wow. And not just a traumatic death, a traumatic relationship. The end of a relationship. Someone refusing to let go. Heavy.
Really
heavy. Really emotionally intense.
We're told the full story involving her husband in chunks, and there's one piece that remains missing.
I was going to say, it's not really the full story.
Yeah. At first, we just see he's falling.
And she's got a bloodied nose. So.
Yeah. And we don't know the context, and then we get a little more context. And
she sees him falling through the window, we should say. Okay.
And I don't know, what was it, maybe half hour into the movie, 20 minutes in the movie, we get more context, and we find out that he was obviously dealing with some significant mental illness and was being very terrifying
He was threatening to kill himself if they
Yeah.
continued through with this divorce.
Yeah, and essentially, which I think happens with people who are in the throes of mental illness.
I think that maybe this hit me a little bit differently because I remember a really immature me from high school doing that same kind of abusive behavior.
Well,
and
I think that I don't know that we're meant to empathize with him, but it was to me really sad because I think it was played really well.
Yeah.
The character, and I think unquestionably what he was doing was wrong. Like
Oh,
there's no doubt about it, but there was also this sense that he was completely out of control and he had no control over what he was doing.
broken.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It wasn't played in a black and white way.
Right. And I think every one of us has encountered somebody with mental illness or has encountered that difficulty ourselves. And I think there are pieces of this that we can all connect to. And so even though he is doing something very horrific and very wrong, I don't think he was made to be the villain, which I thought was something interesting as the movie evolved. But I think one of the messages that I walked away with really early on was how much strength it would take for a woman in her position to walk away from a situation like that and remain strong and whole, because a lot of what we are trained to do as women is take care of things, and to feel like you have been involved in a situation where she had to put herself first finally. Like she had tried a lot of different ways to be a caretaker to this person that was, abusing her horrifically. And she finally hit a wall and had to take care of herself first. And the immediate reaction / consequence of her putting herself first was this horrific thing, right? And I think obviously it was not her fault, but a lot of what we see unfold in the movie, I think, is a manifestation of what I would probably do in my own head in that situation, and what I think just a lot of gender roles that we play out in society, both overtly negative but also much more subtly ingrained.
She never caved to the idea of being responsible for this.
I mean, she was screaming in the church. She was really sad. But I do think she was grief.
You can be grieving without
guilty.
Yeah.
That was one of the most impressive parts of her character for me. And there's this cool scene at the beginning where she's exploring the woods around and she's like doing this echoey thing in a tunnel. Just to see her trying to experience joy, like even
freedom.
That scene. And even that, I was like, wow, this lady's kind of a badass. Like that's emotionally would be a really hard thing to do. And the decisions that she's making throughout this movie are decisions that have now become very popular for society to say, well, yeah, women should take care of themselves and they should do X, Y, and Z. But the subtext is, well, yeah, as long as it doesn't compromise all these other things that you're supposed to take care of too. And so I think for her to be going and doing these things, watching it from my position, I was like, wow, this is really cool. This is amazing. That's really impressive that she is doing that, because it's not an easy thing to do.
I'd love to see this movie in 10 years and see how that
changes.
Yeah, how that perspective has changed, because I had that same feeling of like, you fight. Would you feel guilty if someone killed himself over you? It's easy to say that you don't have that. It's a different thing when it happens and you have to go through it. You know?
And I think the resilience that she displays and the mental strength that she has,
and it doesn't falter
even in the face of these crazy, horrible characters that she encounters.
Rock and roll Green Man time, baby.
Yeah, in the first 20 minutes, she suddenly just encounters this really creepy looking,
fully naked,
fully nude,
kind of mossy,
little
textured.
Yeah, he was like a open field version of the Descent gremlins.
Sure, a little thicker.
Yeah,
I'm okay with it.
Thicker. He was a little thicker.
Do you know much about this Green Man in folklore?
It is it's a super folklore intertwined with the Fae and all of these other things in England. And it's actually kind of, if I would have thought about it, I would have talked about that more. Be a fun episode at some point. But
is it like an open source kind of mythology? Like,
well, it's supposed to be. In fact, I feel like this was a symbol that came up in Midsummer.
I feel like it was mentioned in some of the reading that I had about this. But
And even the image of it. But yeah, the idea is it's rebirth, right? And so it's has to do with the springtime, but also has to do with fertility.
they bring up Peter Pan and Robin Hood, and they both kind of have the green hat. I wonder if that's symbolic of something as well. I'm just reading the Wikipedia page in literature.
Interesting.
That's kind of,
Very interesting.
But that's a huge digression. I have no idea.
I mean, I always assumed that it was like pagan roots.
I'm sure it goes back that far. Yeah. There's an episode in Chilling Adventures of Sabrina where they mention the old pagan god.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, wow. I love that I can only relate in pop culture.
Well, and I think it's one of those archetypal things that shows up all over the place. It's not just a Western religion thing. I think that there were similar things in like Indian cultures.
Okay.
But yeah, I think the consistent theme is rebirth, which obviously carries a lot of connotations towards the end of the movie, and fertility. I think, I don't know contextually, but just historically and where the Green Man appeared. But for this movie specifically, it seems like an interesting juxtaposition to have the figure associated with rebirth, a creature that cannot give birth because it's male. The Green Man.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
But then we've got a different symbol that recurs. Mm-hmm. The Sheila Nagig, the image of the person spreading open their vagina.
Oh, I think that was just wasn't that a specific artist that did those depictions in?
It's another kind of similar thing. The carvings of the figure with the exposed vulva or vagina, spreading it open. I think
But
that was another
frequently part of church decorations all over
Yeah,
Europe.
that was inside of that church.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't really know too much. I wish we could have done a whole episode about this.
And I heard
but
Alex Garland talk about these depictions as kind of people freak out about them, and the idea of watching a birth or even watching or looking at art of somebody, whether they're born vaginally or by cesarean. He actually brought those both up specifically. Mm-hmm. And he thinks that that's just patently absurd because every human being walking the planet came in one of those two ways.
Yep.
And so it's crazy that we have such a visceral negative reaction to that type of an imagery. And he made the argument that a lot of the reactions he's seen to the final scene are actually more horrified by like the genitalia or depiction of a vagina than they are of the rest of what's going on.
Yeah, I've never seen a birth, but like a lot of those images like, in that last sequence, like they start out as a pretty normal like birth sequence.
Right. And
we are kind of teetering on spoilers, but
he's been very specific about how everybody can have their own interpretation. He's not going to tell us what the movie's about.
Yeah.
For me, one of the patterns that I've recognized in my life is how frequently guys I'm friends with will talk about how they never want to see what happens down there during a birth because they'll never be able to look at their wife the same way again. Right? I hear that all the time.
That's the package deal, dude.
It is the package deal. And also, I think that there's got to be some type of message that he's conveying here around the role we play is to not show that. Like, we have to provide that service to mankind, but we can't compromise the rest of what we're supposed to do for men by making that too overt.
Yeah.
And so I think throwing that as like front and center in such a really bold way,
it's jarring.
Right, is I think calling attention to, okay, why is it jarring? Why is that so shocking to see? And why should it be, you know?
He's making you ask some really important questions in
right.
this movie.
And I would love to hear more input from like some of my male friends about what they found jarring versus what I did about that ending. Because I think a lot of it, which I think is depicted in this movie too, we've got all of these different characters that are all being played by this same,
which we haven't talked about
super
at all.
Impressive actor.
Yeah.
And it's, at first you think that, okay, well, something's going on. Like maybe she's just having, I don't know, hallucinations.
Let's do this real quick. Jessie Buckley plays...
Oh, she's good.
I saw her in Beast a couple of years ago. It was like a serial killer story, but it was like a really nuanced take.
Interesting.
You're led to have a little bit more sympathy for this serial killer.
Oh.
So it was a cool film. But,
Fascinating.
I think that was the first time I saw her.
So she encounters all of these different characters, right? She's got the landlord who is odd but like seemingly harmless.
Played by Rory Kinnear.
Got the weird naked dude who looks oddly similar
Kind of
to the
played by
landlord.
Rory Kinnear.
Did he not do the full frontal?
I have no idea if it was his penis.
I just assumed it was.
I bet he did. I mean,
he seems like that kind
go
of a
back to
committed
28
actor.
Days Later, I think Cillian Murphy's penis was out in the first scene that we see him.
Was it really?
The hospital bed.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Huh.
I don't think that Boyle or Garland are really concerned about that.
No, they're pretty modern in terms of the human body. But then she encounters a policeman, and at that point you're like, okay.
All right.
Like, they are all this same face. This is weird. She goes to a church and runs into a vicar, which is, I will never understand the difference between a vicar and a priest. I don't get it, but he...
Well, but who does she meet before the vicar?
This super...
A snot-nosed...
That was the scariest part to me.
I'm glad.
There's this little kid who's wearing like a mask straight out of Purge or Strangers.
Yeah.
Like a, caricature blonde plastic woman's face. He wants her to play hide and seek, and he gets really pissed when she won't play hide and seek. And you see his face, and it's very obviously Rory Kinnear, but it's like somewhat age regressed and shrunk a little bit. It's like a really...
The uncanny valley.
Oh, yeah.
You really feel it in that.
Oh.
Because a man's face is on the boy.
And I think
boy's
I
body.
experienced what people say they find unsettling about Clifford, but I will never find it unsettling because I love that movie so much. But I think that this is probably what people might experience in that. But the vicar was the place where I really started to feel the sexual nature of what was going on.
Yeah.
He was being horrific to her about the death of her husband. And
Well, that's where things
essentially
get very mansplainy to minimize the situation.
Yeah, very true. She becomes very aware that, okay, like, this is malevolent. This isn't just some dude that's being kind of a jackass. Like, he's actually being evil. But there's this really gross, quick scene as she's walking away with his hand on the bench. It struck me because it was the first part in the movie where I felt like, because the way he was engaging in the conversation was very abusive, but also oddly sexual.
Yeah.
The way that he places his... You're going to think this is crazy, but you got to go back and watch it. The way he places his fingers between the slats of the bench. And I remember watching it and thinking... I guarantee you this is something that Byron's not going to notice because I think it's like a female thing to notice. That's what he's doing. Like that is like exactly what he's doing.
Micro sexual aggression.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was very obvious that that's what he was like simulating.
We didn't really talk about the inciting gaslighting incident. The naked man outside the house, we didn't say that the police did show up and they arrested that man, but then they let him go because...
Well, so right after the vicar, she goes to the bar and she runs into the policeman and the landlord and a weird barfly and the bartender, who is also, of course, Roy Kinnear.
Yeah.
And she finds out from this policeman that they've let the dude go.
Gave him clothes.
Gave him clothes and let him go. Well,
He didn't do
there's nothing we can
anything.
charge him with. He didn't do anything. Like, of course he did something.
She said that he was stalking her, that it was him by the tunnel that chased her around.
Well, but he did come out. She saw him when she came out of the tunnel and she thinks he followed her out of there because that was the first time she saw him.
But I mean, the way they interpreted it, they're like, maybe he was following. It was very much like Watcher again. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no way to really prove that this person's stalking.
Right.
I figured we should mention that.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost an inciting incident.
It is. Well, because then I think from there things start to unravel quickly and then they crescendo to an ending that I don't know how anybody could see coming.
And that's nice because it's easy not to talk about.
Watch it.
I will say we do get some more flashbacks between her and her husband and a little bit more of a light on their situation.
But there is one question that remains, and I think that is really important to the movie.
Probably the most important.
It is and it isn't.
True.
Because I think the fact that it is a question is what is tormenting her, and I do think that by the end of the movie, she comes to the conclusion that it
doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Either way, it should not impact her recovery. And the question is whether he slipped and fell or whether he intentionally jumped.
Because during their fight, after he hits her, she pushes him out of the apartment and he goes upstairs. The neighbors upstairs say that he was trying to push He pushed through and went onto the balcony and
Was trying to climb down
maybe
to her.
to get
and
back
she actually
in.
did say he was trying to climb down to get back in.
But did she know that?
But I think that's what they had said. And she said, so he fell or let himself go.
Fall.
And she doesn't know which one. And I think in her head, for a big chunk of the movie, that's the part that she's still struggling with. Was it my job to take care of him and keep him from doing it? And therefore, if it was an accident, that's bad. But if he jumped because of me, that's worse. And I think she finally came to the conclusion that, no, it really wasn't her job to fix him. Mm-hmm. That wasn't something she could do. And even the expectation that's repeatedly voiced to her that that was within her purview as a woman, she repeatedly resists, and I think by the end of the movie has like a really strong strength against.
How do you feel about this being called a folk horror film?
I mean, the Green Man is folky.
But do you think that's enough? The moments of horror in this, to me, it's basically like a home invasion film.
I think the folk horror element is tied to the role of women and even those vaginal statues and the way that females have played a role in a lot of Western civilization and including the folklore. So I think from that perspective, I heard somebody say that they think it's like a perfect pairing for Midsummer. And I guess I can see that argument. But I could also make the argument that it's a really good pairing for The Strangers.
Sure.
I do think that there's a lot of depth to the gender roles and expectations. And I think that the variety of characters Garland creates exhibits a variety of blame upon men for that. So
You're
I think
approaching the station right now in your head. I can see you're falling apart.
Well, no, I'm just thinking about how like there are characters that Garland makes less hateable than others, right? All of them do things that are wrong.
Because they're human. I think that's kind of the cool thing that he does.
Right. He kind of shows that some of the shitty things that men do are almost circumstantial because this is how we've set men up too, and in addition to the way we've set women up. And then I think other things are more overtly, oh no, he's just a really shitty person. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like a gradient of that. And I think that has to have something to do with why he put a kid into the mix. I mean, other than that really unsettling imagery.
Or, I mean, you're talking about the innocence of children.
Mm-hmm.
He even leans into the original Sin stuff, which we didn't really talk about either, with that opening scene with
the apple.
The apple.
Yep.
From the Tree of Knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the Bible, you've got old Greek literature and mythology. You've got, as you said, like old folk mythology with the Green Man and the female statues. He's touching on very archetypal things.
Yeah, there's those traditional stories, archetypal stories, but then there's like the more modern mental health aspect. All the Papa Asidu playing...
husband.
Who plays James, the husband.
Yeah.
Like really equally important stuff. Everything's kind of weighs the same.
Yeah.
Which makes it really hard to define what this movie is.
Yes. Yes, it does. Yeah, I think it's a really fun movie because I think your interpretation will vary significantly depending on your experiences in life. And I think that was his intent. That's important.
High. Low. Where you want to start?
Oh, I'll start with the low.
Do you want me to go?
Yeah, you should go.
High. I got two highs. Let's say I haven't seen a cool split arm since Evil Dead Remake 2013.
Oh, God.
That was fun. Maybe this one was better because it becomes almost thematic throughout. Mm-hmm. I also really don't think that this year we've had the opportunity to comment on too many locations. Beautiful home.
So beautiful.
Maybe it's the lack of Blumhouse stuff. Like Blumhouse was location horror, but we haven't talked about a nice potential Airbnb for a bit. So I would check this place out. Low, it tries to be a lot of things, and that made it really hard to fully enjoy the project as a whole. What's your high?
Well, my low.
Oh, that's right.
Is the bird death that made me really sad.
Oh, yeah.
It was very sad. And I would have said at the beginning of the movie that the low was like this super on-the-nose biblical reference, but I actually think by the end of the movie, I liked the way that tied in. High...
I was concerned that was going to be
just like
the tone
super
of the whole
obvious.
thing. Yeah.
It made me happy that I had to look up old references that I didn't remember from like my critical theory English classes in college. And so that was fun. I love Jessie Buckley. I think that her performance was really incredible and also very inspirational.
Oh, no.
Oh, no, what?
It looks like she's going to be in an upcoming film called Scrooge, A Christmas Carol.
Fuck yes.
I know how much you like that bullshit.
Who's going to be Scrooge?
I don't know if there's no link to it.
God damn it. And the other high is one that we didn't talk about, and it doesn't get a ton of attention in the movie either, but the idea that she wasn't saved by anyone in the end. She was saved by herself, but her friend was there right afterwards to come and help her through the aftermath, essentially.
Yeah.
And her friend was pregnant, which I thought was really interesting.
Is that a full circle thing?
Yeah, I think so. This movie's one that I will definitely go back and watch again. I'm telling my dad to watch it with my mom because they will get through most of the movie and my mom will think it's interesting.
Yeah.
And then starting with the hand stab, she'll start losing it. And by the time we get to the end sequence, she's going to lose her freaking mind.
She's gone.
It's going to be incredible.
Yeah.
I love men. And I know that Alex Garland is burned out on movie making, but I hope he doesn't stop because he's really great. I give Men 9.0 vaginal Russian stacking dolls.
Wow. Okay. Should I give it a minute for this plane to pass? Or should I just go with it?
I mean, you know my answer.
It's getting louder. I should probably wait. So you mentioned at the beginning that this was a film unlike anything you'd seen. Have you seen Mother?
No, I actually never
seems
watched
like,
it.
It seems like Alex seen Mother quite a few times.
It never came up in any of the interviews that I read.
That's really
Isn't that interesting?
It is, because it's the only thing that I could say that I've seen that felt a lot like this. Even though this is far less surreal, it still has this hum of seriality based on like the Rory faces and the Green Man and this lore that is just simmering in the background. Which is, I mean, that's a really interesting approach to not make that the point of the story, to have all of these elements just kind of hang in the back. But like I said a minute ago, he was throwing a lot at the wall. I'm not saying it wasn't cohesive, I just don't think that it was as focused as I would have liked it to be.
That makes sense.
It feels bad to say that when you're talking about a genius.
No, that's
okay. It's not my style of film, I guess. But ultimately, I think that the message was strong enough. I get intimidated by writing like this, but it really isn't as complicated of a story as I think I went into it feeling. It's just more of an emotional story, which I do like that. For those reasons, I give Men 6.7 Ford Fiestas.
Well, there you go.
And those are our thoughts on Men, which is available now on VOD. Glad we caught it. This would have been one we watched when we were catching up at the end of the year anyway, so I'm glad that we caught it on VOD.
I am too. This
would have been a shame to skip over.
It's going to be on my list, so it really
you think
would have
so?
been.
Top 13?
Yes.
All right, well.
So this is his fun quote, because everywhere that I've seen him talk about it is, it's up to your interpretation.
Of course.
He says, I've heard interpretations of this film from different people who are perfectly intelligent and reasonable that are wildly different by 180 degrees, he says. And that is not really a reflection of the film. It's a reflection of them. Can't learn about yourself from other people.
Alex knows that well.
Can't learn about your film from other people. You can only learn about other people.
What a guy.
I really like it.
I know you do.
I really like this a lot. Can't wait to have the girls watch this.
You're going to show this to your children? You don't need to do that. But if you have seen this, no, let's not do that. If you've seen this, why don't you let us know what you thought? Reach out to us on social media at Frightday on Twitter and Instagram. What else do we got? Facebook.com/group/Frightday. The Discord server, discord.frightday.com. You can send us an email, contact@frightday.com.
Lovely.
I'm going to try to get back on Twitter, I think.
Oh, really? I didn't realize that you jumped off.
I haven't been hanging out as much.
I feel like that could be a good choice, not bad.
Well, listen, if that's where our listeners are, that's where I want to be. But if you like our show and want to help us to make it even better, you can grab something spooky at shop.frightday.com. I think next week or the week after that, we're going to be launching a limited edition shirt. One that we've been teasing for a couple months, actually. So keep your eyes there. But until then, maybe we give them a promo code to, buy something that's already available at shop.frightday.com.
Oh, I could see that being good.
What's a good promo code for the sale?
Men.
All right. Men will get you 25% off anything at shop.frightday.com this week only.
Woo!
Of course, we talked about it earlier ago. Join the Frightday Society at cult.frightday.com. You get access to over 80 episodes of Behind the Screams, bonus episodes of Captain Kelly's Cryptids, Conspiracies, Byron, Serial Corner, The Writer's Room, Toast to Toast PM with Wine Kelly. And the Writer's Room, those folks are getting back together. I think we're talking about doing another podcast there. So don't want to miss that.
I'm so glad to hear that.
I miss them. Great folks.
I do too.
Yeah. Kelly, I'm happy to be back on the porch, I guess.
Of course you are.
I don't know. We're still going to be doing some of the episodes in the proper studio, and they will sound better.
Eventually in winter we will.
We're going to go back and forth still, of course.
Really?
I think so. You're going to make me drive out to the middle of nowhere? Are you really eating right now? We got to end the show. Kelly, until next week, where are you going to be? Eating lime chips?
I think I'm going to be going to see a movie by myself.
I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
And I'm at Byron McKoy on Twitter and Instagram. ByronFrightday.com is my email address. And until next Frightday, I'm Byron.
I'm Kelly.
Stay
respectful.
and stay scared. Chip, hard crunch at the end. Jesus.
It's an outro.
You've been listening to an Audio Wool original, produced by Byron McKoy, theme music provided by Cemeteries. For more programs like this, visit audiowool.co.